Hi, and welcome to the turbulent world with me, James M. Dorsey, as your host. International sports boycotts of Israel are a question of if rather than when, with mounting pressure and ever more targeted boycotts and sanctions against Israel, and widespread public anger at the Jewish state's conduct of the Gaza war. Next week's United Nations General Assembly proceedings in New York, where Gaza is certain to take center stage, are likely to make it increasingly difficult for international and national sports associations to remain on the sidelines under the fictional assertion that sports and politics are separate and that sports builds bridges. That is true, even if attempts by Arab and Muslim majority states to suspend Israel's membership in the United Nations on the grounds that it has violated the UN Charter are doomed to fail, because the United States will veto any such move in the Security Council. International and regional sports associations have evaded and or rejected calls for Israel's suspension. World soccer body FIFA has studiously neglected calls by the Palestinian Football Association and other national soccer bodies by hiding behind committees established to investigate the legality of occupied West Bank settler soccer teams competing in Israeli leagues and Israel's conduct of the Gaza war. FIFA spent more than 23 months dragging its feet and postponing a decision to ban Israel from world football. FIFA's inaction goes against the organization's supposed claim that football unites the world and that football can serve as a vehicle for peace. It is also a staunch example of the organization's hypocrisy, given its willingness to ban Russia from international football following its invasion of Ukraine, said sports journalist Karim Zidan. Moves to suspend Israel's UN membership are one of the few concrete measures suggested by this week's Arab and Islamic Emergency Summit in Doha, convened in response to Israel's September 9 strike against Hamas leaders in Qatar. Similarly, the fact that more Arab and Islamic countries could join South Africa's case in the International Court of Justice against Israel on charges of genocide could further fuel public anger, fan expressions of support for Palestine during sports events, and pressure on international and regional associations to suspend Israeli membership. So far, only 16 of the 57 members of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, or OIC, have joined the South African case, despite the OIC, along with the 22-member Arab League and the 55-member African Union, having done so. Some states are members of 2 or 3 of the groupings. Although unlikely, one way sports associations could sidestep the pressure is to put their money where their mouth is, by moving beyond verbal assertions that sport is a bridge builder. They could, for example, foster dialogue in a universe in which Israeli exchanges with Arab and Muslim counterparts amount to a dialogue of the deaf. Facts on the ground in Gaza leave no doubt about the need for sports associations to step up to the plate. Mustafa Sayyam, Secretary General of the Palestinian Union for Sport, asserted in January that Israel had killed 708 athletes during its now almost 2-year-long war, in which it has destroyed Gaza's sports, and other infrastructure. 6 months later, the Palestinian Football Association reported the figure to be 785. Fostering dialogue will not silence activists like controversial former BBC sports commentator and professional footballer Gary Lineker, legendary former French soccer player Eric Cantona, Irish actor Liam Cunningham, musicians Bob Vylan and Craig Mochiber, a former United Nations human rights official who resigned to protest the UN's failure to penalize Israel. In June, The United States revoked the visas for the members of Bob Villain, who face a criminal probe in the United Kingdom for leading chants of death to the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, at a British performing arts festival. Messrs. Lineker, Cantona, Cunningham, Bob Villain, and Mohiber act as ambassadors for a recently launched Game Over Israel campaign, the latest civil society effort to pressure FIFA and other sports associations into action. Launched by pro-Palestine groups, labor organizations, fan associations, athletes, celebrities, and human rights organizations, the campaign calls for boycotting Israel's national soccer team, Israeli football clubs, and Israeli players. The campaign's timing is significant, a year in advance of the 2026 World Cup, which the United States, Mexico, and Canada will host. As the United States prepares to host the FIFA World Cup in 2026, Americans must not allow our stadiums to become platforms for whitewashing war crimes, said Abed Ayoub, National Executive Director of the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee, one of the campaign's initiators. The United States is unlikely to enforce a boycott of Israel. At the same time, the State Department has exempted from visa restrictions any athlete or member of an athletic team, including coaches, persons performing a necessary support role, and immediate relatives traveling for the World Cup, Olympics, or other major sporting events as determined by the Secretary of State. Israel currently ranks third in its World Cup qualifying group, behind Norway and Italy. With Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez calling for an international sports boycott of Israel, Spanish officials said Spain may boycott the tournament if Israel were allowed to participate. Spain, like Israel, has yet to secure a berth in next year's competition. Initially, the Game Over campaign seeks to convince the national soccer federations of Belgium, England, France, Greece, Ireland, Italy, Norway, Scotland, and Spain, countries critical of Israel's conduct of the Gaza war, to boycott Israeli soccer. The activists hope their campaign will force FIFA and European soccer body UEFA to suspend Israel if those federations refuse to play against Israel's national and club teams and bar Israeli players irrespective of their stand on Gaza. The boycott raises a question posed in the biblical tale of Sodom, in which God agrees not to destroy the city if 10 righteous men could be found there. Palestinian players with Israeli citizenship who play for Israel's national soccer team, as well as Israeli clubs, and Bnei Zachnin, Israel's most successful Israeli-Palestinian squad, which won the 2004 Israel Cup, frequently face racist fan slurs. They are Israeli soccer's 10 righteous men, even if Israeli fans and sports executives frequently question their loyalty to the state. Nevertheless, they too would be penalized by a blanket boycott. So would Israeli nationals who served in the Israeli military, but not in the current Gaza war. Some may argue that Israeli Palestinians made their bed by joining Israeli squads. That argument ignores the fact that they are Israeli nationals and mostly stand on the right side of history in an increasingly hostile environment. To be sure, a selective boycott that seeks to exempt those on the right side of history is a slippery slope that attaches value judgments in terms of who deserves to enjoy freedom of expression and who doesn't. Boycotts are a form of collective punishment, an Israeli policy roundly condemned by much of the international community, which, when applied by states rather than non-state actors, is banned under international law. To be sure, boycotts may be one of the most effective tools available to non-state actors, based on freedom of expression and the right to choose, even if their track record is mixed. For now, the Norwegian Football Federation has found an elegant way of navigating the pitfalls of continued Israeli inclusion in international sports amid calls for a boycott. The Federation pledged to donate the proceeds from its October 11 World Cup qualifier against Israel to a humanitarian organization that saves lives in Gaza every day and provides active emergency aid on the ground. At the end of the day, there may be no good resolution to the dilemmas posed by a boycott, but activists and campaigners need to address the issue head on, rather than bury their heads in the sand. Thank you for joining me today. The rise of artificial intelligence magnifies the importance of journalists with true expertise, top-notch sourcing, and historical depth. These journalists, like me, tell and analyze in-depth stories. Their goal is to enhance their readers' and listeners' ability to form informed opinions of their own. We don't just chronicle events. Our reporting and analysis are shaped by years of on-the-ground coverage, expertise, and historical knowledge. In my case, I have covered geopolitics, the Middle East, and the Muslim world for decades, having been based in multiple countries, including Israel, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iran, the UAE, Lebanon, Kuwait, and Turkey. Hard-hitting reporting and analysis that lets the chips fall where they may is even more critical in a world of brutal wars, unimaginable humanitarian crises, and increasing authoritarianism. That is the turbulent world with James M. Dorsey's mission since its inception 15 years ago. Thousands worldwide are avid readers and listeners of the turbulent world. Join them in helping to maintain and expand the column and podcast by becoming a paid subscriber. You can contribute by visiting jamesmdorsey.substack.com and choosing one of the subscription options. Thank you for your support and loyalty. Take care and see you soon.